to WorkYogi Diaries.
Thanks, Santosh. Thanks for having me here.
So, Srinath, we've known each other for like many years, and I've seen you
26.
26 years. I didn't want to give away our age to people, but that's okay. And I've, kind of seen you progress across your career, across multiple roles and responsibilities. And it's always very fascinating to see someone who enjoys work and is doing great at their work. So we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to learn from you. But before that, I want to kind of just hand it back to you and have you do a quick introduction, where you live, what you do, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much, Santosh, to have me on this show. It's definitely an honor. It's a pleasure. And I've had the opportunity to see you run this with Run Yogi. So I hope and really wish that this takes off the way you had taken off with Run Yogi as well. So again, my name is Srinath. I am based out of Chicago. I'm married for a good 23 years, and I have two daughters. One who is 16, and the other one who is 12. So from a work perspective, and which I'm assuming we're going to talk a lot about it today, I am part of a company called Larsen and Toubro Technology Services. I am responsible for one of the business enterprises that L&T Technology Services runs globally. So again, I'm based out of Chicago. So I've been here for about 15 years.
Thanks, Srinath. So I want to start with the fundamental question. What does work mean for you?
So work, in my opinion, is a very integral part of my life. It's a definition of who I am. It's a symbol of my personality, and and I guess that's how I look at work. It's an identity, not the entire identity, but just a part of the whole identity of who I am as an individual.
Makes sense. Like a core identity. Work gives you a sense of identity, like that, right?
It gives me a sense of identity. It kind of, in a certain manner, defines me. A personality or a persona can be divided into multiple branches, and I guess work is one branch that provides you the identity.
So let's roll back, and how you got to see your work the way you see it today. Let's start from where it started. Right, your first job, and you started with sales. So tell us about your first job and why did you choose sales?
So my first job, from a career standpoint, and I would call it my first real job, was with Tata Elxsi, which I started way back in '95. But before I became a part of Elxsi, and very proud part of Elxsi. I spent about 6 months with a very early age so-called startup company, which was a distributor of projectors, and in those days, laptop computers. Okay, so that's how I started my career, 25 plus years ago. So the first question, why sales? I've always been fascinated with selling. Okay, and some of it possibly has come very naturally because my dad was a sales guy, so I have actually seen him in action. I have seen him, being out there and traveling. Definitely, I was not overly fascinated by the glit and glamour of sales because, interestingly, when I decided to become a sales guy, sales executive was one of the lowest valued profession in the industry, and those days. A marketing executive and sales executive, people never used to like having that on their card. It was the days of, software engineer and, an engineer per se had a lot more value in the industry than a sales executive. But somehow I was really attracted to the profession, because of what I saw my dad doing, and possibly what I what I wanted to do in my life. Okay. And sometimes what happens is, because you're a good orator or because you are a very outgoing personality, you're also hearing other people say, you talk well, so you be in sales. So it was a very natural reinforcement, that I was going through when I was, starting my career.
Yeah. So when you started with sales, did it meet your expectations, or did it turn out to be something totally different in your first job?
See, my first job, was was very interesting. I mean, as I said, I worked for a distributor of projectors and stuff like that, and it was a swanky office. I was just getting out of college, and I thought, that everybody at my workplace are going to be very rich people, and they are in the IT industry. So and this is way back, when IT industry was very cool, and it wasn't as good as it I expected it to be, if I have to say, right. I still remember the first customer meeting that I walked out, where my manager said, "Hey, come on, let's go and meet this client." And this was at Bharat Electronics, and he said, "I brought my car today. Let's go in my car." And I was with all glitters and shine in my eyes. I walked towards my manager's car, which happened to be a more rundown version of my dad's Fiat, right? And the passenger side door was not opening, so I had to get in from the driver's side. So I would say, the dreams came crashing, when I actually got into the car, saying, "Hey, it's not all glitz and glamour, but hey, let's go with the ride and see what it gets to us." But the one thing that all through my career, okay, and I have always been very proud of being a sales guy. So today, when I meet anybody, anywhere, right, I will not really introduce myself. I mean, my wife gets irritated at times when somebody asks me, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a sales guy." It's how you define it, right? I mean, because I deeply respect the profession. It's overly abused. It's overly judged. But I think it's a profession that I'm very, very proud of, and I continue to be proud of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think without sales, there's no business and there's no economy, right? So, coming back to your first job, right? And you said you started your job. Your expectations versus what you thought crashing down. But what about like the work itself? Like you must have thought of sales being a kind of work. Like I'll tell you what, in my case, right? So when I started. When I was selling for the first time, I encountered a customer and they were very rough with me on my first job, and I was very upset because I had just come out of engineering, I had a big ego. And I said, "What is this sales? Like this is not for me." So I went through that. So I was wondering for you, how was it? Like, talk a little bit about that.
If I really go back on time, I think I really enjoyed the whole process of selling. And I will say, very early on in my life, I mean, right from when I was selling projectors to selling laptops, I think, and again, it might sound very idealistic and unreal, but I really kind of enjoyed the whole process of explaining to the customer about what is it that I am bringing to the table. Okay. And I still remember, I went through a very early on in my career. I went through a training from that was provided by Miller Hyman, and I still remember, concepts of open neutral questions and closed questions, and having the dialogue and stuff like that. So it was a very enjoyable process. Okay, so that is number one. Did I encounter tough customer situations? Absolutely. Did I feel disgusted, about going to customer sites which are in remote locations by those days we used to call them red board buses, in a tie and a shirt with someone sitting next to you is carrying possibly a bag of vegetables from one village to another. there are times when I used to feel very, saying, hey, what is going on here, right? But I think the whole process of engaging with the client, the endorsement that was coming, I mean, the customer who used to like to see me, of course, there are some very troubling incidents that happened later on where I was very irritated. But I think the first few years, I think it was a very enjoyable process for me. However, I think just to give you a sense, my first assignment when I moved to Tata Elxsi, which, by the way, I so fondly remember today because it has actually become a foundation for the way I think, was actually collection of payment. So I was made to go to this client of ours, a defense establishment, to go and collect 35 lakhs for a deal that had already been sold by my predecessor. And it was one of the heinous exercises that my manager could have given me, because all the credit was taken away by the previous salesperson of selling the deal. And I had the responsibility to collect the payment. So it was a very classic case of, what happened in the Karate Kid, where, the guy makes you put the hanger and stuff like that. But in process, I think the one very important learning that I took away from it was, how does a dollar move inside an organization? What is the process of the finance? So there are a lot of these things, that I really, if I think about it, I think about it very fondly.
Absolutely. And do you remember your first sale?
I remember my first sale. It was with a company called NTTF. It was my first purchase order for 21 lakhs, 2100,000. That was my first purchase order, and it happened on September 22nd, 1996.
So this
is after 8 months of everyone around me telling me that I can't close a deal. It was a very heartwarming feeling. So yeah.
So this was not with the company that you worked in, the distributor laptop. Is that the same company?
No. This is with Tata Elxsi.
So let's talk about the first deal. How was it for you? What was the emotional side of getting that first deal?
First deal was bittersweet. Because I was only digging the last 2 feet of the sales process. So the guy, my predecessor, who had done me enough harm by closing a deal and leaving the payment behind, also did a lot of legwork at this customer side. So I was in this deal in the last, I would say, 20% of the closure. But it was an important part of the closure because, there are a lot of nuances that has to be covered when you're actually closing a deal. But having said that, it's a very gratifying feeling, when you get the deal signed, when you get the purchase order in your hand. It's definitely a gratifying feeling.
Good. And so
I think it should give you enough sense that I remember the value and the date. I think that should give you a sense of how important that deal was for me.
I know, and it's a good size actually. Good size.
Yeah.
Even by any standards, right? 21 lakhs even by today's standards is not too small, right? So at that point in your career, right, and this was happening, and so what were you thinking? How were you thinking in terms of taking it forward? And did you have any inspiration or somebody to look up to figure out what next for you?
See, I'll be very candid. Okay, I had no plan. I was getting ready to get married. So I had to work for an organization that my father-in-law respected. So I got that in Tata Elxsi. So it was great, right? That was the first part. The second one is, I distinctly remember that I was in a hurry. Okay, I was in a hurry to grow. I was very restless. Okay, so I spent a couple of years in Tata Elxsi. The progression was very well defined during those days. You work for an Indian IT services, IT distribution company. It can be a Wipro, it can be an HCL, it can be a Tata, or it can be companies like that. You spend a couple of years and then you jump into a MNC. It was called MNC, right? Multinational companies, right? So the expectation was very clear. I had to spend a few years and then I had to jump ship. So, but having said that, I did have, the good fortune of, working with some great guys in the team, people with different personalities, people with different capabilities, people with different aspirations, and all these things were inspiring me in one way or the other. I used to like, one individual's energy. I used to like one individual's optimism. I used to like one individual's motivation, capability, and drive. And I also had a bunch of very good colleagues, who I, literally shared my professional growth with, who were also so eager, anxious, to go out there and make things happen. So those things continue to inspire me.
So I think, what I'm hearing is you were looking to grow, you were hungry for growth, you want to try new things. That's what I'm hearing was one of the core motivations that were there.
See, at the end of the day, I think it was too early in the career, right? I mean, you're hardly 2, 3, 4 year experience, person at that point in time. So you want to, rub shoulders with, organizations that have, a certain standing in the industry. And, the natural progression was going from an Indian, distribution company into MNC, which was actually selling those products during those times. I think that was the only motivation, for me at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that, the thing that really, also, I know that I think about it, when I was with Tata Elxsi, based on my grade, I used to travel by train. I used to travel first class, but I never could fly to my customer sites, right? So one of the motivations for me to actually move into an MNC was actually, get on a plane, which coincidentally came to that, actually. My decision when I moved, and, which we'll possibly talk, actually came down to a plane ride. Between staying in Elxsi versus leaving, kind of thing. But all these things are, now when I think about it, sound very silly, but this is what was, getting me going.
Small pleasures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Small pleasures.
Yeah.
Small pleasures.
Flight or getting to stay in a 5-star hotel. Small perks of job hops,
which became disgusting later on, but before it happened, yes, I mean, it was a fantastic moment.
Moving forward, right? And so then what happened? So you were in the domestic tech industry, and of course the outsourcing boom happened. What next? What happened?
I was getting restless. One of the sales guys that used to be a very, very good friend of mine, who's in the Far East now, took up a job in Singapore, and we are fiercely competitive in our respective roles, and very respectful of each other, but fiercely competitive. And he took a job in Singapore, and my restlessness hit a new high. And I said, either I need to go to Singapore, or I need to, find something that's going to, meet the stature of this guy. It was all very, I would say, I'm not getting the word, but very outward. How do you look to the outside world? I mean, how do you present I mean, that mattered a lot during that time. It wasn't a calculated move that I want to, offer more things to other customers or anything like that. I just want to be cool. I just want to look cool. I want to work for an MNC. So anyway, I think what you seek seeks you, right? So when I was very clear that I have to get out, I had the opportunity to interview with Computer Associates, and Computer Associates. Funnily enough, I mean, now it's a little bit of a forgotten entity, but in '98, Computer Associates was the second largest software company in the world, right after Microsoft. Oracle was number 3. And they had come to India, and I had a wonderful manager who was looking out, and he really took a liking for me. And finally, I after almost about 4 or 5 rounds of interviews, I finally made it into Computer Associates. The problem was, always decisions after you get something, you always think twice. So I had to go to Bombay for a induction and a sales conference, but I was in two minds, and because I had just won a very large deal in Tata Elxsi at the time, and I was doing very well, and suddenly this option kind of came up. So the decision of joining Computer Associates literally came down to whether am I going to take the flight in the afternoon or am I not, right, to Bombay. So that's what happened.
And are you competitive? You mentioned you competed with, and I think I know who that is, but but let me ask you that: is competition a primary driver for you?
I think see there is a distinct difference between being competitive and competing with somebody, right? See, when you're being competitive, you are bettering yourself, right? You're focusing on your own self. But when you're competing, you're always, it's like a percentile. It's like comparison with the people around you. The moment you get into a competing kind of a behavior, I believe it's a very debilitating and a very limiting activity, right? You will not be able to really transcend, the possibilities that you personally would be able to create for yourself. So I think from that perspective, I am very competitive. I'm really not. I have never. I think Computer Associates was a very, very good learning for me because I really, in that 1 year that I was there, I had everything that I had aspired for from a glitz glamour perspective, right? But what I learned at the end of it, and that's where I learned there's no point in competing with someone. You have to be fulfilling for your own self in doing something that is going to make you feel good and better. And I think that was the defining moment for me, actually. If I think about it, it was a very, very defining moment. I did go into CA because I was competing with this colleague and friend of mine. But if I think about it today, I wouldn't do that again. It'd be a lot more practical.
So it shifted to competing with someone to saying, hey, I want to define my own journey and go after it and be defined by that versus trying to emulate or trying to be like somebody else. I think that's what I'm hearing.
So the defining moment, if I think back at it, stayed only for a little period of time. In '99, everybody was going to the US. Okay. So I was, at that point in time, I said, CA is not working out. So I have to go to the US. Okay. Things as it may have turned out. I mean, I did get an opportunity to, work with a startup, and that's how I started, moving into a startup company.
So how was that like? How was it to move to US?
Before I moved to the US, I think 3-4 things happened. I spent about 4 months in India. So from the glitz and glamour of very sophisticated MNC, I joined a very heartland company in Bangalore where everybody were very normal, very themselves, very endearing, very supportive, a very nice environment to operate in. So the first 3 months was all about suddenly from talking to Indian customers, I was talking to customers overseas. I was talking to clients in the US. I was talking to clients in the Europe. So it was a very enjoyable experience to work in the night, to make calls. And like a lot of people, I also changed my name. I thought, Srinath is not going to work for anybody. So I changed my name to Nags. I thought they will be able to relate to it. Of course, a year, 2 years later, I realized, nags can also mean nagging, and sales guy nagging. There's a lot of conjecture there. So, yeah. So I think that's how it was, and then of course I made my way to the US.
So, what did you notice about change the sales culture, selling in a domestic Indian environment versus what did you have to adapt? So, talk to us about, like, did you have to learn some new skill? Did you have to reframe what selling meant?
See, I always keep hearing that selling to Indian customers versus selling to US customers and Europe customers. There is a lot of difference in the buying pattern and stuff like that. And I think there's no rocket science to that. I mean, that's a fact. Every buyer is different, and every buyer, depending on the nationality, is different. But every buyer is different based on the context that he's operating in, right? So I think when I first started moving, from India-based selling to US-based selling, the first significant difference that I recognized very quickly was the reception that we used to get when a customer likes something that you are selling. See, in India, if a customer likes something that you're selling, you are able to gauge whether he's going to buy or not. In the US, in the initial stages, I mean, it took time to kind of really come to terms with at what point is a customer buying what you're selling. I think there was a lot of gap in terms of what we were understanding at that point and what eventually happened on the ground.
Okay, let's move on. So, talk to us about some of your defining moments in your career. So, one was you talked about moving from competing to defining kind of an approach. And while, yes, for most of us during that time, career was based on opportunities that presented themselves. We made choices, we moved on. And I think that's a similar story. I think all of us can relate, especially for folks who were in sales and marketing back in the 90s, right? But let's say 10 years fast forward, last, let's say 15 years of your career. Talk to us about some of those redefining moments. So like the one that you defined where you had to reset your view and probably it took you to another level as a professional.
See, all of us, when we are salespeople, we really don't want to know what's under the hood of what we are selling, right? So we have a very strong ecosystem that is supporting us. So you're really not going to really put in that extra effort. You're carrying enough burden of convincing a client, working on the semantics of the deal, blah blah, all that stuff, right? We've never tried to look under the hood and say, hey, what is it that we are really selling? What we are selling, does it have any value or not? Or, let's say, for example, you have a pre-sales guy or a solutions guy or a delivery guy or whatever. Are you making any attempt to understand, what is it that they are offering under the hood, right? I think I never tried to do that. When I was with Shema and then with Emphasis in the US, I was running a region. So, I used to focus on selling. Whenever a client meeting happens, whenever a technical conversation happens, you bring in a solution architect, you bring in a domain expert, and then they will converse and they will take it forward. Simple, right? I just focus on the business, and I focus on, I used to fondly calling it as delivering coffee and tea in conference rooms when meetings were on, right? So that streak actually continued when I moved into my next job at Putney as well. And I had a phenomenal colleague who eventually became my boss, who was very good in solution architecting, right? We used to call it solution architecting, but essentially it's a pre-sales activity, right? Who used to have a good sense of the marriage between technology and a client need and stuff like that, and a very adaptive sales guy. So very interestingly, around 2007, 2008, as I started graduating into getting specialized in a particular industry vertical, the support system started becoming very, very less. So I started having problems depending on people because Two reasons for it. One, of course, we didn't have the right investments as always, but more importantly, my intelligence quotient also started going up. Right. So now I'm able to call out, the crap that somebody comes in and gives to a client, because, obviously all of us are getting intelligent just by virtue of spending so much time in the industry. Right. So I still remember this one meeting that I went to in Schenectady, New York, wherein I was
what year
getting
was
into
this?
a meeting. This was in 2008, I would say, around 2008 timeframe. And we were making a presentation on something to do with PLM. And it so happened that the guy who was supposed to be delivering that, presentation or whatever was not able to join. And he was supposed to join remotely from India, and they didn't have some conference set up or whatever. This entire thing came and fell on my head. Okay. And I actually spent time going through that the entire night. And then I went in the next day and I delivered, a presentation, which was very highly appreciated by the customer. And, so that was a very interesting moment for me, wherein I realized that, hey, I know this subject better than I thought I did. Okay. So let me just become self-reliant, going forward. And this is where I think the competitive part of me started kicking in. So, it's basically, I'll figure it out. If something happens, I'll figure it out. Right. As long as I'm focused on, delivering, which is also in a way sometimes debilitating, because I'm not reaching out to anybody for help. I'm trying to solve all the problems on my own, and so on and so forth. But anyway, so that was a very good and important moment for me, where I started realizing that, hey, if I think a little harder, I can actually start becoming more than just another sales guy. Right. And then, of course, after that, it became muscle memory. It became a necessity. So I'm a lot more involved, which actually has been tremendous value for me as I progressed over the years.
So defining moment number 2 is where you're saying that I need to be self-reliant. Makes a lot of sense. And I guess it also in a way puts you up ready for taking on bigger responsibilities as well.
See, it made me more prepared, for sure. But it also helped me to contribute, even in my current roles, in more ways than one. Right. I mean, today, when I'm in contractual conversations, it gives me a lot of clarity. Even the legal people, obviously, they are specialists in their area, but if I'm able to understand what they are dealing with, I will be able to have a better, respect for what they are saying, and better way to communicate it back to the client. So yes, I mean, obviously, these are all important elements for you to be aware of as you go.
Oh, that's a fantastic tip, right? For people who are listening to this, people who are building their careers in sales and who are looking to move to the next level. That's a great tip and a lesson, right? And it's a great takeaway, if you will, from your personal experience. So, all right, let's keep moving on. So that was defining moment number 2. Let's move to the next defining moment.
See, the next defining moment, which actually completely changed me. Okay. And for the life of me, I have spent about, even every year, I continue to think about it. This was a sales training that I did. Okay. And I've done several sales trainings in my career. A lot of them actually are very prescriptive, right? Right from Miller Hyman to I think the one that we were talking about in the previous organization. I keep forgetting the name. It's very prescriptive, right? I mean, it's like, this is how you need to conduct your meeting. This is how you need to ask questions. This is how you need to map the organization. This is a user buyer. This is an economic buyer. This is a coach. I mean, there is a lot of science behind selling. Books are written, and so on and so forth, which is all great. Again, all of us have our own ways of, learning. So we all learn in different forms and fashions. But there was this training that I did, which basically put up a complete organization map, and we were provided a capital, and we were supposed to move the money in terms of allocation of that to run this into an operational environment as a team. Okay, so I had the role of a CEO, and then I had to pick up my CFO, I had to pick up my production manager, and it was an industrial kind of a setup that actually gave me it was actually one of those epiphany moments in my career. Okay, and this happened around 2011 and 2012, where I completely understood the functioning of an organization. Okay, how does a dollar move within the organization? And this is where I draw the relevance to my learning when I was walking the defense office corridor trying to collect payment. So there was a lot of correlation that I was getting when I was going through this exercise. I was remembering my days in 95, where I was learning a lot of things, right? So this was a very, very important and a defining moment, because I really understood what is an organization's imperative. What are they looking for? Not just the finances. See, when we read a 10K, when we read a balance sheet, which is another important exercise that a lot of us have imbibed, is to make judgments based on balance sheets. What is the movement of a dollar inside an organization? How do decisions happen? What are the different roles and responsibilities? What is their important KRAs? And a lot of those things started becoming clear after this particular training. The training didn't impart everything, but it kind of unlocked, a lot of knowledge that was latent in the brain.
Great. So you have 3. Are there any more?
If I have to fast forward and look at it, I think the most important moment that has happened to me, you have to do what you like. You really have to be motivated about waking up in the morning and doing what you're doing, right? I mean, it can't be a mundane effort. I learned that I have to be aligned by my values. See, what happens is, over a period of time, either you learn to live with your surroundings, or you stand by your principles, right? And I have I don't know which defining moment helped me. I can't put my finger on it, but I live by my principles, right? I mean, I go by some values, even in the work environment. I only do if it makes sense to me, if it makes sense to how I feel, my story, and then take decisions based on that.
So what are your principles or values? Maybe 3, at least top 3 ones.
See, I think the first important thing I really look for is there needs to be an environment of respect, in anything that you do, right? In a place that you work, in an environment that you're operating. I think there needs to be a human to human respect. Okay. That is the first very important thing that I really look for. Second, I think the unseen competitive spirit of mine, right? Possibly is always looking for, periodic growth in what I'm doing as an individual. Okay. And I'm not talking about, hey, today I'm a vice president, tomorrow I should become executive, then I should become a CEO. I'm not caught up about those things, right? I have to be doing something more than, what I have been doing in the past. I mean, that's the second, thing that, is very important. And the third thing is, I mean, see, at the end of the day, I believe everybody is delivering something to another person. Okay. So in essence, everybody, I won't call it sales. Sales is more of a UI. I mean, it's basically something that is actually just the top layer of what an organization is providing. But otherwise, everybody's selling something to everybody, right? You have to believe that whatever you are delivering is of value to the other person that you're selling to. Okay. And you have to inherently believe that. If you do not believe that what you're selling to the other person is of value, then you are lying to yourself, you're lying to the other person, right? And that is not something that is sustainable from a long-term perspective. As long as all of us organizations, so that's why I'm very cognizant, and all these things are interlinked, because the epiphany moment number 2, where I learned I have to be self-reliant, actually teaches me how to handle this part of it very well, right? Because now I have an understanding of what am I delivering. Is it of value? So there is a realism attached to what we are delivering to the market.
So if I were to summarize, one is the top 3 values that you like to live by is, one is respect for people. Second is growth mindset, in if I were to just say it in that sense. And third is ongoing value creation in every interaction or any relationship. Those are 3 big things that you value the highest. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Sense. So I had a question for you. In terms of big challenges, right? You've been a salesperson, you've been a sales manager, and you've been a sales leader, and now you're a BU head, you're a senior executive. What were your core challenges in these 3 or 4 big buckets of your phases of your career?
As a sales executive, I think my biggest challenge was conviction. Okay. We were in a high-paced sales environment, and I didn't get my first sale for almost about 8 months. So I started, believing that I'm not good at it. I can never get a purchase order. And, even when I got the deal, that I talked about, it was something that I had only contributed to the last 20%. So there was this element of fear that was constantly bogging me on the back, that I'm not good at it. I can't win a deal. So it stayed with me for a while, actually. That thing bogged me when I was an individual contributor. And this happens to a lot of us, right? This happens to a lot of us, especially when I talk to people for hunter roles. People are very skeptical to get into hunter roles because of the fear of failure, because they are not sure whether they'll be able to accomplish what is needed and stuff like that. So I know where that fear is coming from. I've been through that fear. So that is when I was a sales executive. When I was a sales manager, my biggest fear was judgment, and it was judgment of the team. Am I adding value to them? Am I too pushy in terms of getting things done? Right. So I had the constant fear of towing the line, between being aggressive with my team to whether am I kind of pushing too hard, kind of question that was running on my mind. So because of that, it's always a kind of a dilemma whether did I get the right outcome from the team that I was managing, right? When I moved into the sales leadership role, and I moved into a role under very unique circumstances, I was replacing a predecessor who was still existing within the system, which is a very, very challenging responsibility to take. The biggest challenge that I had in that context was, whether am I earning the trust, of the individuals that I'm leading, of the organization that I'm leading. So there was a constant need for reassurance that I'm doing my job right? I'm delivering, the kind of value that you're looking for, and that was constantly, bogging me when I was in the, sales leadership position. when I moved into, and I've played hybrid roles at different times in my life, sales being the primary responsibility. When I moved into a complete business ownership, the challenge was predominantly, coming from, do I know this industry? Do I know this subject? Am I confident to lead with enough knowledge and assertion, for the team, because everybody is looking up to you to be a guiding factor. So that constant, fear is running on my mind, and I think that continues in any role that I will play in the future. But I think those are things that has happened to me at different stages.
So how did you deal with those challenges? Like going back to sales, your sales manager role, and which is kind of, when you moved on to sales leader, it was more of an amplified version of a similar thing, I guess, in a way. So how did you deal with it? How did you decide what's the right amount of intervention versus, delegation? How did you decide? How did you resolve it for yourself?
See, I don't know whether I got the formula right. I mean, that is, in my mind, I will never scale up to the point of saying that I got it right. All right, I'll be very honest about it. But I think the one element that I have always focused on, and I have done that, especially when I started playing a little more senior positions and senior leadership roles, was identifying the win criteria for my team. Okay, so I used to look at every individual and thinks about what is a win criteria for that individual. And, I used to work with that person to enable that win criteria. All right. Or at least I used to try, to the best of my ability. I think that's what really was the area that I used to focus on quite a bit. I don't think I have been successful enough in really not being hands-on. Because what happens is, see, when you are a leader, when you're a sales leader, see, you have a wide variety of team with wide variety of possibilities, wide variety of competencies and things like that. You need to be able to detach yourself from your own competencies when you're dealing with a team outside, because you can't put yourself in somebody else's position and say, if I were in his position, I would do like this. I think it takes a lot of effort to actually let the other person do what he's capable of, and you're actually pushing that person forward. I don't know, or I don't know whether I'm there at that position to decide that, yes, I'm there, because I'm a very, very hands-on person. So I always, look at things saying, if I were in his place, what would I do, right? And deal with that position or that situation in that manner, which actually is good and bad. For people who are better than me, I'm actually limiting their ability to deliver in that situation, because I'm putting myself there and I'm saying, hey, so they're possibly only bringing 20% of their competencies to the table. Yeah. So that's a constant thing that I try to focus on and try to make happen.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, now coming to bad days, how do you deal with bad days? Like a bad news, a bad business news, or anything that hasn't gone the way you think it should go. How do you deal with it? How do you get yourself back? And I'm sure you've had to do that many times in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I get drunk. So jokes apart.
That's a bad advice, by the way. We don't want people to go take this advice and start drinking. No, don't do that.
So I think bad days happen more often than I want it to. I mean, whether it's a deal that's gone south, it's a review that's gone south, it's a meeting that's gone south, and so on and so forth. So I think I don't have any magic mantra that that I can offer or I can provide and stuff like that. I strongly believe, and this is my personal belief, that um, if you had a bad day and if it is bothering you, indulge in it as much as you can. Okay. um, Go into how you feel um, by yourself, observe it as a third person, but just don't try to immerse yourself into something else, because that's still lurking in your subconscious, right? So take it to the end, and just live through it, live through the the outcomes and all that stuff. The one thing that I have learned, which I have been doing very religiously, is I have never gotten into a what if scenario. Okay. I have never gotten into a what if scenario in anything that I have experienced, whether it is negative, positive, or whatever. It is always about, this has happened, let's accept it, right? There is no other way, because it's already happened. I mean, it's in the past. So I think those are the two things that really come to my mind, when something bad happens. Again, there have been years where I have sulked. I have spent endless time, endless nights thinking about what could have been if I had done XYZ and so on and so forth. I don't do that anymore. I mean, I just take it at face value. This is what has happened, so let's decide on what next.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like radical acceptance, right? This is it.
Yep.
This is it. Deal with it. And I like the way you also are allowing it to just run its course, right? You're not trying to push it artificially under the carpet. You're not trying to pretend everything is all right, which is a great lesson, because I think everyone deals with down every day, deals with a bad moment or a bad day or a bad news. And especially for us in sales, that's just part of life. I think 25% of your career is good news, 75% is bad news. I mean, I'm just making this up, which comes back to my next question, which is stress, right? How do you manage stress? How do you manage to de-stress? Let's rephrase that another way.
See, I think again, I mean, I think I'd like to give a very measured and popular answer, right? Saying that I do meditation and yoga and all that stuff. I don't do any of that. Okay. When I'm stressed, I'm stressed. It's clear. Again, as I said before, I let it sink in. I experience stress. I do two things. Okay. The one, I experience it for myself, but I'm a very keen observer of my stress as a third person. And I do that all the time. So I'm observing my stress in the third person. Again, it happens to be a borrowed experience, borrowed learning. But that gives me a lot of understanding of the causes for it, and where is it coming from, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling, and so on and so forth. But again, as I said, I let it run its course when it happens. It's like a car skidding on the snow, right? You don't want to control the movement, otherwise things will go out of control. You just want to let it go, let it happen. Definitely, I mean, I'm not saying that meditation and breathing and all that stuff is something that will not help. I'm sure it helps, but I have not personally tried it, or I have not done it. So that is one part of it. But the second part of it is working out. Is has always given me tremendous amount of de-stressing outcomes, right? Once I sweat out, I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more confident, and moving on.
Makes sense. Almost spoken like a Zen master. What about family? How do you manage? How do you bring balance between, a busy life, a busy career like this, the intensity of pressure and emotions, going with it? So how do you manage to balance this, or is balance even a thing?
No, it's not. balance is not even a thing. This whole work-life balance. I'm not a big proponent of the concept of work-life balance, right? Everybody has to do what they really love to do, and as long as they do what they love to do, they are, contented, right? At the end of the day, and that's my fundamental state of mind. Family has their own emotions associated with your involvement or lack of involvement with them. Okay. And every incident, every time any incident happens, I mean, whether you're dealing with stress, you're dealing with travel, you're dealing with work related activities and stuff like that, there is going to be a myriad of emotions that are going to be running on their mind, ranging from whether is this person interested in spending time with us? Does he have the mind space to have this conversation with us, and so on and so forth. So really, it's from my perspective. I think I have a very supportive family, and I have been a sales guy right from the time I got married, and I really got married very young. So a very supportive wife who every day reminds me that I have been traveling for the last 23 years, but still sticks with whatever I do, and very appreciative of everything that we are doing together, as a family, right? My kids, again, I mean, my older one has moved beyond, really caring whether I'm around or not, as long as I have the my aura is roaming around. So I think from that perspective, I think they've all been very supportive, and it's been a blessing. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So what about hobbies? I know you like singing. What is
Yes.
that? Is that your biggest hobby?
I think singing to a great extent is my biggest hobby. It's my biggest getaway, my stress buster, and so on and so forth. I really enjoy singing. I was a big fan of movies and Bollywood and stuff like that, but I've just given up now. I mean, I have 6 OTT channels, and any given day I would like to maybe watch 20 things at the same time. My attention span is very low. I can't get through a full movie. It's actually messed me up completely, and my interest in anything that is movie or anything that's got to do with movies. So I think singing is a very good area for me to de-stress and spend my time on.
So you're a successful, you've had a successful career, and you've been at it for a while. Any thoughts on how you want to give back?
In terms of giving back to the society, I have a myriad of thoughts. There are times I wanna go back to some village in India and reconstruct. I mean, I get inspired by Srinath Nagarur, who is Zoho founder. I mean, I was very inspired by his story about what he's doing. I put myself into his position and think of what I could be doing with that. I also think about possibly getting into education, getting into some kind of teaching. So there are a lot of different possibilities, that I dabble with, but it's not in my primary vision at this point in time. It is something that, hey, a few years later, I think maybe that's what I would like to do. I think that's what I think is running.
All right, cool. I have a next part of this show, which is a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
So is there a gift hamper?
I'm not as rich as Karan Johar, but one day when I have sponsorships, I'll have that. And I'll have a couch as well with a studio. Not today. Today is just going to be fun. So, first question: how many job rejections before your first job?
None.
None. Zero. Good. First job, first hit. Okay. If not sales, what would you be doing?
I I don't think I had an alternative career planned out at all. I mean, nobody has asked me this question, so I would say, I would possibly doing customer service or something like that.
I thought you'd say you would be a Bollywood hero or director or something.
That's too cliche. No, I am a very safe character that way. I mean, that's all good for books and over the drinks conversation.
So, what's a song that best describes your career or
Oh man.
resonates? It can be something that resonates, like you feel like, hey, this reflects something about your journey or your career, whatever.
See, again, I mean, because it's a rapid fire and I can't really stretch my imagination to too far. I think Musafir Hu Yaro is a perfect representation. I strongly believe that and this is a very good joke that I keep getting pulled for by my friends. I keep always saying that we're all on a journey, and it's just the ride that's something that you have to take in. You really shouldn't get caught up about where you're going, what the destination is, and stuff like that. So I think Musafir indirectly, I think just kind of aligns completely
Yeah,
to my journey, I guess.
I love that answer. That's my favorite song too, and I would have said the same thing. So love it. Um, a movie that's impacted your work ethic or a worldview.
See, I think, oh my God, in 2012, from a Bollywood perspective, impacted me completely. It completely changed me inside out. Okay, um, and I was very religious. I had a certain perspective about God, and oh my God, completely changed it. I think it is a very very it had a very big role to play. I mean, it was an okay movie. It was a decent movie, whatever. But I think there were a lot of things that I picked up from that movie which impacted me even today. I mean, I continue to be impacted by it. So um,
So can you
you know
name one thing that the worldview, like past, before, and after? One thing.
so uh, I mean, I went from a religious guy to being um, I won't call it atheist, uh, somewhere in between. I mean, let's call it pragmatist, right? In a
Okay.
way, that's my worldview. Again, I am also. I think the one thing that I took away from the movie, again, I am not. I don't think Oh My God really said anything that I am taking away as a takeaway. That's the beauty of takeaways, right? I mean, things that happen, I mean, doesn't necessarily impact you in the way it's supposed to impact. I mean, it can impact you in more ways than that. I think the one thing that I took away is that to be respectful of everybody's beliefs and opinions with regards to religion. I think that was the one thing that I took away very, very deeply, and I follow it. Being respectful of everybody's point of view, everybody's religion, religious beliefs, and everything that's associated with that.
Okay. A favorite book that's influenced your worldview.
I think I think there are a lot of books that really impacts me. Uh, the one book that impacted me quite a bit was Blink. Um, the the other book that that impacted me was The Power of Habit, which I mean one of the best books that I really enjoy. I read it a lot of times. I mean, I read it again and again. I think it's a very impactful book. And the third one, which is my possibly my hands down favorite, is The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I think has definitely impacted the way I look at my work life, the way I look at my personal life. I think these are the three books that come to top of my mind.
Hey, this was enjoyable conversations. I enjoyed it. And thanks for taking the time out this evening. And, this is our first podcast in this series. And I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways people are going to, get from this conversation. So thanks a lot. And continue to have a wonderful career and continue to do what you're doing. And we'll stay in touch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Santosh, and wish you all the best. I hope this takes off the way your WorkYogi Diaries took off, and wish you all the success.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.